Are you considering becoming a cosigner on a loan? Let's talk about that. Hey, it's Kristi. Thank you so much for being here with me, and let's talk about co-signing for a loan. First off, what does it mean to be a co-signer? That means you are obligated to repay that debt just as much as the person that you are co-signing for. You both are 100% fully responsible for that loan repayment. So if the person that you are coming alongside and helping out by co-signing, if they fail to be able to make that payment, that debt obligation, guess whose shoulders it falls on? It can have huge implications on your credit and your ability to borrow money in the future. So let's dive into what that looks like. So if somebody's being asked to get a cosigner in order to potentially qualify for a loan or for a line of credit, that means one of a couple of things. It could mean that they don't have any credit established, and since they have no history at all of the ability to borrow money and pay it back on time, they need somebody to basically guarantee that obligation. Or maybe they have a little bit of credit, but it's not very deep or rich. It's just maybe something very new. So we don't have enough information there to see if they're a good candidate for a new loan with a debt obligation. And the third, and the one that I see the most often, is when somebody has poor credit. Credit history that reflects missed payments, late payments, maybe there's some collections, repossession, something along those lines. So in order to be granted new credit, you have to have somebody else that comes along and says, I'll guarantee that they will repay this loan. So what happens if they don't? You're responsible for it. And if you don't repay that loan, if you don't make up those missed payments, if you wind up with late payments, something along those lines, it will hit your credit as if it's your own debt. I was speaking with somebody who was referred to me last week, and when we were going through our conversation, he'd shared with me that he had a bankruptcy less than 2 years ago. So I started inquiring about what happened that made him have to go into that place where he says, I need to have a bankruptcy to clean up my debt obligations. And it turns out he had co-signed for a loan for his niece, and she was no longer able to make those payments. And so now he's got this large collection against him, and the only way he felt that he could take care of that debt obligation was to claim bankruptcy and have that debt wiped away. But you guys, that's keeping him from being able to get what he wants out of his life. He wanted to buy a new car, he couldn't get financing. He wants to buy a house, he has to wait a little bit longer in order to potentially qualify. And then when we were talking about his credit scores are in the toilet because of that trade line. And unfortunately, I have seen where family and friend relationships are really, really harmed because of the loaning of money or somebody coming alongside them, becoming a cosigner, and then that person that asked for that favor is no longer able to repay that debt. And it's not intentional, I'm sure, but if you lose a job or the ability to earn money or something happens and you can't repay that obligation, it's not just the person that needed the cosigner, it also affects the cosigner just as much as it affects you if it were your own debt. So it's a huge major risk. I want to put out a layer of warning here. Please just understand that you are guaranteeing the repayment of somebody's loan. So there's certain situations I would encourage it, and there's certain situations I would say really, really please be cautious. So if you're a parent and your kids need a cosigner for their student loan, obviously you want to help them to get through college, and if it requires your signature, I understand that. Maybe you're helping your child get financing for their very first car and they don't have any credit established yet. I understand that. But if you have somebody in your life that habitually doesn't have enough money, is always late making payments, can't really pay back the obligations that they have now, and they're coming to you and asking for your help in becoming a cosigner on a loan, please heed my warning. It could really put you in a bad place. So I would have you ask the question of yourself, if that is the situation, if that person is not able to make their payment, are you? Because if not, it can really destroy your credit. Your payment history on your credit algorithms, it's 35% of your credit score is made up by your payment history. So if there's late payments or missed payments completely, it could really have detrimental effects on your overall credit rating. So be cautious. Just know the only way that you can get off of a loan if you are a cosigner is that that debt is paid off in full or it's refinanced. You can't just call that creditor in 2 years and say, hey, that person's been making all of these payments on time themselves, go ahead and remove me. It doesn't work that way. And if you really are nervous about the ability for them to make back that payment and you feel like you might get stuck with that debt repayment, perhaps you could say something along the lines of, I really wish that I could help, but I don't think that I'd be able to co-sign for you at this time. It's a really gentle way of saying no. And sometimes people need to hear no, but you have to protect yourself. So I want you to know taking on a debt obligation as a co-signer is just the same as the person who's taking it on for themselves. It's reported a little bit differently, but in the big scheme of things, you are the one that is responsible for that debt getting repaid in full. Thanks so much for being here with me. I hope that answers your question. And if I haven't, feel free in the comments to put a question and I'm happy to answer it for you that way. I do have a podcast on credit. It's called Credit Coaching by Kristi. So if you're looking for very specific information on credit, please join me over there. Otherwise, I'd love it if you subscribe to this channel. Thanks so much for watching.